Peace, Oakland. Welcome back to Gotham, Oakland. I'm your host, Seneca Scott. Let's talk about something that could seriously shake up policing in Oakland, California. President Trump's latest executive order, titled Strengthening and Unleashing America's Law Enforcement to Pursue Criminals and Protect Innocent Citizens. Sounds good, right? Let's dive deeper. On April 28, 2025, Trump directed Attorney General to review every federal consent decree in the country within 60 days. The goal? Modify or cancel any that are seen as obstructing law enforcement. Now, whether or not Trump actually follows through on this is anyone's guess. He issues executive orders like tweets or truths if you're on Truth Social, Trump's knockoff version of X. But if he does act on it, it could have major impact here in Oakland because we've been under a federal consent decree for more than 20 years. It's formally called the Negotiated Settlement Agreement, but around here we just call it the NSA. So, what does this executive order mean for Oakland? And what else is buried in it that we should be paying attention to? First, let's break it down. For those of you who are wondering what a consent decree even is, a consent decree is a legally binding agreement approved by a federal court between a local agency like a police department and the Department of Justice, the DOJ. It is used to fix systemic issues like civil rights violations or excessive use of force. The city doesn't have to admit wrongdoing, but it does have to follow a long list of reforms. The catch? A federal judge and independent monitor oversee the process, and the city foots the bill. And if you don't comply, the judge can intervene. There are about 20 to 30 cities under these decrees right now in America. Some of the usual suspects include Albuquerque, New Mexico, Baltimore, Chicago, Cleveland, Ferguson, Los Angeles, Louisville, Miami, Minneapolis, Newark, New Orleans, Portland, Seattle, and of course, Oakland. Now, here's where Oakland's story gets interesting. You see, we've been under federal oversight since 2003, after the infamous writers scandal, when OPD officers were caught beating, planting drugs, and targeting mostly Black West Oakland residents. The city settled for nearly $11 million and agreed to over 50 mandated reforms. It was supposed to take 5 years. 5 years. Well, now it's year 22. Why the delay? Here's my opinion. Oakland is still under federal oversight because our local progressives like it that way. The NSA gives them a tool to limit traditional policing, and in many ways, it acts as the backdoor to the police or advancing police abolitionist goals without ever having to go through voters or city council, i.e., defund the police. That's why, even when OPD makes progress, there's very little political will or urgency to finish the job. The oversight becomes the point. From 2003 to 2016, taxpayers in the city of Oakland spent more than $13 million just on compliance and court monitoring. $6.2 million of that went to current monitor Robert Warsaw, one guy. Add in the cost of reforms, tech upgrades, audits, and staff time, we're talking millions more every year. That's before we mention attrition and before we mention the hidden cost of inefficiency from having people fill out excessive paperwork. Talk to any OPD officer, or better yet, talk to the OPOA, the Police Officers Union, and hear the frequent complaints about how NSA limits their ability to actually keep us safe and do efficient law enforcement. And just when we were finally on track to finally exit the NSA, things blew up again. In 2023, OPD had hit full compliance on most of the 52 reforms. Retired Judge Brenda Harbin Forte, who also helped lead the recall against Mayor Shing Tile, pushed for Oakland to finish the job and end the decree. But a misconduct scandal, conveniently timed, involving Sergeant Michael Chung, who committed a hit and run and fired his gun in an elevator, derailed everything. Investigations revealed major breakdowns in internal affairs, and Chief LaRon Armstrong was blamed for not holding officers accountable. Judge William Orrick stepped in, called it a cultural rot, and extended the federal oversight. Then Mayor Shing-Tao responded by firing Armstrong, saying that he wasn't credible and tried to downplay the scandal. Armstrong claims he was scapegoated because he was trying to get us off the NSA, and he may just have a point. Now, a 2023 report by retired Judge Maria Rivera suggested that his firing may have violated his free speech right. Armstrong has since filed lawsuits against the city, is pushing to get reinstated, arguing that the monitor exaggerated the issue just to keep the oversight and the money going. Well, I'm not sure if he's pushing to get reinstated anymore, but he is still suing, and he is alleging that we're trying to keep the oversight and the money going. Not to mention that there is a conflict of interest with John Burris, the lawyer also sitting on the Police Oversight Committee, who weighs in on whether or not to keep the consent decree going. Blatant conflict of interest. Retired Judge Brenda Harbin Forte pointed this out several times. It fell on deaf ears. Now, Trump's executive order could force our Department of Justice to review our consent decree, Rob Bonta, our DOJ, and ask, is it still necessary? Is it doing more harm than good? If the order is enforced, Oakland might be pushed to finally take responsibility and end this 20-year saga. Or as some in City Hall probably hope, they'll just keep dragging it out, because as long as the monitor is in charge, the activists behind the curtain don't have to be. So let's take a look at some news clips. Then we're going to break down exactly what's in this executive order, what it could mean for policing and politics right here in Oakland, California. So first, let's take a look at the press conference itself when they announced the signing of this executive order.
We'll host a press briefing at this same time, bright and early again, to highlight the Trump administration's economic accomplishments with our Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. And tomorrow night, President Trump will travel to Michigan to discuss all that he has achieved on behalf of the American people. On Wednesday, the president will host an open press cabinet meeting where each 100-day week with a focus on the president's historic effort to secure our southern border. Later this afternoon, President Trump will sign an executive order on law and order and another executive order on sanctuary cities. The first EO will strengthen and unleash America's law enforcement to pursue criminals and protect innocent citizens. The second EO is centered around protecting American communities from criminal aliens, and it will direct the Attorney General and Secretary of Homeland Security to publish a list of state and local jurisdictions that obstruct the enforcement of federal immigration laws. After these are signed, the president will have signed more than 140 executive orders already, rapidly approaching the total number signed by the Biden administration over the course of 4 years in office.
Okay. So let's take a look at another article or news program, ironically coming from my hometown, Cleveland, Ohio. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, Cleveland is one of these cities under consent decree. It seems that most of these cities are in progressive Democratic controlled cities. Although Cleveland is not controlled by progressive, the mayor is a staunch moderate. I actually know him. Mayor Bibbs is a great young man who's done a good job of helping to turn the city around, but yet the Cleveland Police Department remains on consent decree. So this is from a local news show talking about the impact on Cleveland, Ohio, potential impact on Cleveland, Ohio. I've not seen this yet, but I'm guessing it's going to be similar to Oakland.
Tonight, Cleveland's police reform agreement with the Department of Justice is once again under scrutiny, this time from President Trump, who has ordered a review of all police consent decrees nationwide.
That move could bring an end to those measures. And tonight, the city of Cleveland and the mother of Tamir Rice are responding. Sia New Yorker is live in the newsroom with more on that. Sia, good evening to you.
Good evening, Russ and Lena. This executive order comes after Ohio U.S. Senator Bernie Moreno called on the Department of Justice back in February to review and potentially terminate its consent decrees with police departments across the country, including the city of Cleveland.
Ever since her 12-year-old son, Tamir Rice, was killed by Cleveland police officers back in 2014, Samaria Rice has been vocal.
I was just really thrown into the situation. I was kind of oblivious what was going on in America until it happened to my son.
One reason why she says Cleveland's consent decree should stay in place because she believes the police department is still out of order.
It really needs to be in compliance because we have no accountability nowhere. You're talking about 137 shots. You're talking about Tamir Rice. No indictments. No indictments.
The consent decree came after an FBI investigation in
No
2014
indictments.
found evidence of police officers using excessive force on the job, as well as widespread civil rights violations. A federal monitoring team has overseen the city's police reform efforts since then. Earlier this year, monitors said they've seen, quote, strong evidence of de-escalation and proportional force being used. But now,
That's good.
President Trump's executive order says his administration wants to promise free private legal protection for police officers accused of wrongdoing on the job, along with more training, access to military equipment, and other benefits. A
Military
spokesman for the city
equipment?
says they are reviewing that order to evaluate its impact on the city and our residents. In the State of the City address moderated by 3 News' Russ
Mayor
Mitchell,
Bibb.
Mayor Justin Bibb says the city has made remarkable progress with the consent decree, but admits there's still work to do.
We want to make sure that the monitor gives us a clear methodology and a clear end date to say when we can be compliant. Now, once we are compliant, we still have work to do to make sure that those reforms are sustained to ensure we're still building trust between police and residents.
And compliance, in your mind, is how far away?
I think 2 to 3 years.
Samaria Rice says
Look at
it's not good enough.
how the man just answers the question plainly. No word salads, very matter of fact, 2 to 3 years, which would place him at about 5 years. So if Cleveland has been under consent decree since 2003, it is now 2005. He's saying they need a couple more years, which will put them around 5 years. The total amount that Oakland was supposed to be under consent decree, Oakland has been under for 23 years. 23 years, Oakland has been under the negotiated settlement agreement, paying our federal monitor Robert Warsaw and cohorts, including John Burris, over $1.2 million a year. At what point does it become their fault? After 23 years, shouldn't Robert Warsaw, he wasn't the monitor the entire time, but shouldn't that entity collectively, whoever's been in charge, share the blame, the collective responsibility for our lack of progress? Just a thought. So let's actually look at the document itself. If you're still here, 13 minutes in, you're probably wondering, can we just see the dang old document? Man, let me see it myself. Let me see it. Boom, boom, there it is. Strengthening and unleashing America's law enforcement to pursue criminals and protect innocent citizens. Strengthening and unleashing America's law enforcement to pursue criminals and protect innocent citizens. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to put it up. You guys should go to it. I'll put the link in the YouTube video description, and I'll link it on the thread for X, so you can go and check it out yourself. If you've been reading it, I am going to read a couple points of it, because I think that this is very interesting where he's going with this. And I think that it starts very innocent, and then it ends quite nefarious, in my opinion. Section 1, purpose and safety. Safe communities rely on the backbone and heroism of a tough and well-equipped police force. I think safe communities rely on the backbone of everyone feeling provided for and not needing heroism or a tough and well-equipped police force, but having peace officers in a high-trust society. But anyway, that's a topic for another episode of Gotham, Oakland, or maybe Post-Partisan America with Seneca Scott, my new show coming out. Shameless plug. My administration is steadfastly committed to empowering state and local law enforcement to firmly police dangerous criminal behavior and protect innocent citizens. Living in Oakland, California, I welcome this energy. We have absolutely been captured. We have no rule of law, and we need help. Without the consistent help of the California Highway Patrol, who I heard made hundreds of arrests in the past couple of weeks, we would literally be Mad Max. Anyway, back to the executive order. When local leaders demonize law enforcement and impose legal and political handcuffs that make aggressively enforcing the law impossible, crime thrives and innocent citizens and small business owners suffer. When local leaders demonize law enforcement, impose legal and political handcuffs that make aggressively enforcing the law impossible, crime thrives and innocent citizens and small business owners suffer. That describes exactly what is happening in Oakland, California, Los Angeles, Portland, Oregon, Portland, Maine. Well, maybe not Portland, Maine, they're a little rich. But the point I'm making is every city captured by progressive Democrats who just a few years ago were for defund the police, they still are, they lie about it. Every one of them who demonizes law enforcement. For example, Kat Brooks is a close supporter and ally of Barbara Lee. She runs the Anti-Police Terror Project and regularly calls for the abolition of police entirely. Now, I understand this rhetoric. I used to be a police abolitionist myself before I actually ran for office and even thought conceptually about what it meant to be in charge of people. See, when you're not running for office, it's easy to have these ideas and even healthy to challenge people with these radical ideas. But when you're in charge, when businesses and taxpayers and the babies and the elders are depending on you to keep rule of law, to uphold the social contract, to make sure we're being educated, when you're in that position, you have to be more pragmatic than thinking we don't need any police whatsoever. That makes no sense. It's not cops and it's cops and robbers, not robbers. Well, in Oakland, it looks like it's just robbers. So anyway, let's get to the part about the NSA. These are the parts that get the important, the meat of it, if you will. The Attorney General shall take all appropriate action, pretty vague. All appropriate action, what's appropriate? To create a mechanism to provide legal resources and indemnification to local law enforcement officers who unjustly incur expenses and liabilities for actions taken during the performance of their official duties to enforce the law. Isn't that something that local police officers do, the Wives and Widows Fund or their own local funds? Or he's saying they're going to give more federal dollars from taxpayers to protect officers accused of wrongdoing? This mechanism shall include the use of private sector pro bono assistance for such law enforcement. Okay, that handles some of it, but not total. And I do agree. I know lots of officers who are terrified to enforce the law because they're worried about being personally sued and having their lives upended. There is credibility to this. I'm not saying it's not, but all appropriate actions is vague, and unjustly incur is vague. There's no test or oversight here. Let's move on. Empowering state and local law enforcement. And this is the big one here. The Attorney General and other appropriate heads of executive departments and agencies shall take all appropriate action to maximize the use of federal resources to, and you can read this yourself, but expand training, increase pay and benefits, legal protections, enhance sentences for crimes against law enforcement. But here's the big part. Within 60 days of this order, the Attorney General shall review all ongoing federal consent decrees, out-of-court agreements, and post-judgment orders to which a state or local law enforcement agency is a party, and modify, rescind, or move to conclude such measures that unduly impede the performance of law enforcement function. So within 2 months, 2 days ago, April 28th, the Attorney General shall review all of those 20 plus federal consent decrees, out-of-court agreements, and post-judgment orders, including Oakland, to either modify, rescind, or move to conclude that it is unduly impeding on the performance of local law enforcement functions. I absolutely believe that after 23 years, Oakland's NSA is being used to impede local law enforcement functions. 1,000%. Full go. Yes, do this. I was happy when I read it. When I kept reading it, it got a little crazy. And now this is the part. This is the part that could be very interesting and potentially problematic. Section 4, using national security assets for law and order. Using national security assets for law and order. Within 90 days of the date of this order, the Attorney General and Secretary of Defense, in consultation with the Secretary of Homeland Security and heads of agencies as appropriate, shall increase the provision of excess military and national security assets in local jurisdictions to assist state and local law enforcement. What is the definition of excess military? Can anybody tell me? Please leave a comment. What are national security assets? Are they talking about contractors? This Blackwater? Are these retirees? Is this people who are reserved? This special ops? As you know, it's against the law for U.S. military to operate on U.S. soil unless there's an executive order, like you're seeing right here. Within 90 days of this order, the Secretary of Defense, in coordination with the Attorney General, shall determine how military and national security assets, training, non-lethal capabilities, and personnel can most effectively be utilized to prevent crime. It seems like doublespeak. Did they just throw in non-lethal capabilities? Preventing crime usually involves lethality. We have a very armed populace. Our criminals are known to carry guns, big guns, Glock switches, all of that. Non-lethal, I think they're pulling our tail. This language is a little vague and very expansive. It could be used to enact a very insidious martial law in cities at the president's whim. I'm going to let you read the rest yourself. It includes holding state and local officials accountable. So they're going to pursue all legal remedies and enforcement measures to enforce the rights of Americans impacted by crime and shall prioritize prosecution of any applicable violations of federal criminal law. With respect to state and local jurisdictions, who officials willfully and unlawfully direct the obstruction of criminal law, including by directly and unlawfully prohibiting law enforcement officers from carrying out duties necessary for public safety and law enforcement, or unlawfully engage in discrimination or civil rights violations under the guise of diversity, equity, and inclusion. What the heck initiative? I just threw that in there. That restrict law enforcement activity or endanger citizens. So here are my thoughts. I would like to hear what Oakland Police Officers Association thinks about this executive order. I would like to hear from incoming Mayor Barbara Lee and current interim Mayor Kevin Jenkins about what he feels about this executive order, because 60 days is not far away, 58 days is not far away from a potential conclusion of Oakland's NSA. And I want to know what type of coordination, how are the police and working with our local government, city council and mayor, to make sure that we're all on the same page here? Because if we're not on the same page, it looks to me that the police officers may finally have a slight upper hand in just doing what they want to do. If they have a friendly administration who's going to give them legal support, who's going to end the NSA, this pendulum of police reform may swing back so aggressively that it may cause some problems that we weren't ready for. And I'm talking about me as a regular citizen who's very concerned about what's going to happen this summer. Now, I'm going to end it with this. Those of you who've known me for a long time know I've been telling people since 2018 to build your ark. I've been telling people since 2018 to build your ark, to build parallel systems that can sustain your life while the current system decline. Why? Because as a doomer optimist, I strongly believe we're going to have widespread societal collapse in America. I think that is inevitable. I think that we have foreign entities who are working to usher it in at a rapid pace. And I can't shake this gnawing feeling that this could be this summer. These tariffs have the ports empty. No food coming into those ports, no imports. We're going to have empty shelves. If we're not ready for this, combined with higher energy prices, it's very, very possible we could see some sort of civil unrest in America this summer. And I'm not saying it will be entirely organic. It could be the conditions are right and nefarious entities push for it. Very similar to 2020 summer. And maybe, just maybe, this is President Trump's plan to, in his mind, protect U.S. cities. I'm not sure. But it doesn't feel good. I have a very unsettling feeling about this. Now, as I said before, 120-something executive orders in his first 100 days in office, which means more than one per day, it's impossible he's going to carry all of these out. We also know that the courts have been very active in attempting to stonewall President Trump's agenda. So I don't know exactly how this is going to play out. There could be some good from this. We could finally get off of our negotiated settlement agreement. Oakland may finally have the handcuffs that they have on them that will not allow them to properly do law enforcement the right way and actually catch criminals, because if you don't catch them, if we don't catch enough criminals, they're going to keep doing it, which is why we have an illegal dumping problem. This is why we have a retail theft problem, which is why we have a child prostitution problem, which is why we have systemic government corruption. No one's getting caught. Well, this lady got caught behind me. But most of y'all aren't getting caught. And until most of you criminals get caught out there, we're going to continue having this problem. So maybe we'll get off the NSA and it will help. But it's a little unsettling that all of a sudden we can have military or the police using weapons of war against their own citizens. That's not something I've ever been for. I've also always been for the demilitarization of police, because if you're cheering for the police just because your preferred people are in charge at the moment, what happens when your preferred people are not in charge, but those same rules that you cheered for are now being used to oppress you, your free speech, your first, second, third, fourth, Fifth Amendment rights, your personhood rights. See, the very first step into over that line or into the darkness, that very first step into corruption, that little tippy toe you put over the line, like, it's not that bad. I'll tell a little white corruption, like a white lie, but white corruption. I'm just gonna ignore this, or I would not do that because it's convenient. That first encroachment is the most important, because if you get away with it, the stakes get bigger and bigger. The next thing you know, you're in full-blown totalitarian mode. You don't even know how you got there. America, be careful. We're in the danger zone right now. We're in a danger zone. Again, I'm happy to see this administration is taking proactive steps to help cities like Oakland, who have been captured by these dangerous ideologues. And I hope that the overreach does not go too far. But who am I? I'm just one person with a podcast, Gotham, Oakland. So I'm going to end it there. I love you guys. Please take care of yourselves. Please plant some food, grow some food, go to Costco, get rice and beans, all the prepper stuff. Be prepared. We should have 3 months of food, water, medical care, and provision. If your phone doesn't come on and your water doesn't come on, your toilets don't flush, and your power doesn't work for 100 days, what will you do? And how will you make it? Get those things fixed right now. I urgently, urgently implore you. Peace. Love you. Take it easy.
Yo, I swear it's only up from here. Yo, I swear it's only up from here. Yo, I swear it's only up from here. Yo, I swear it's only up from here.